Hello, folks. We're going to get started. Thank you all for joining us for making a difference in making a living conference. My name is Phil Laney, and professor of sociology and anthropology at VPSU, Cannabis. Now I'm in my 34th year, which is hard to believe. And I'm also the coordinator of the Cannabis Studies Certificate Program, which is one of the reasons I'm introducing our next speaker, Julie Hulburd. So this session 3 is entitled Insight to Impact. And our speaker is Julie Hulburd, a commissioner with the Vermont Cannabis Control Board, with over 20 years of experience in human resources spanning the private, nonprofit, and public sectors. Julie brings a wealth of knowledge in organizational design, systems implementation, and regulatory compliance with the Vermont Cannabis Control Board. This includes years of experience in employment practices, workplace safety, health insurance, workers' compensation, as well as risk and cost management. Understanding the strength in diversity, Julie has maintained a consistent focus on equity and developing inclusive policies throughout her career, a focus she brings to her work with the CCB. Prior to joining the CCB, Julie was chair of the Vermont State Ethics Commission, where she championed transparency, accountability, and fostering public trust in government. Julie holds 2 degrees from Vermont State University, a Bachelor of Arts in Hotel, Restaurant, and Tourism Management from Johnson State College in 2000, was that right? Where current President David Berg, that was David was the Dean of Students at Johnson at the time, and I know was an important mentor Julie while she was there. We do live in a small state, right? Julie also has the Master's of Arts in Leadership Studies from VPSU this past year. And currently, I think this is for you, is someone know why?
Yes.
Actually, the Vermont Law and Graduate School. I met Julie almost 4 years ago when she reached out to me and faculty members in Castleton with the Cannabis Studies Certificate Program. She reached out to try to seek ways that we could collaborate with Vermont State with the Control Board, particularly on cannabis educational support for social equity applicants for business licensees from the CCB. That collaboration has grown. It really has been instrumental in forging a working relationship between the CCB and Vermont State University through the Cannabis Study Program. This includes Julie and her fellow commissioners visiting and speaking to our cannabis study classes, inviting program faculty to address the CCB and its members at their regular meetings, encouraging aspiring entrepreneurs in the Vermont cannabis industry to enroll in our courses, and just recently advising the Cannabis Studies Program on a series of cannabis studies workshops to be offered to cannabis license applicants held on the Johnson campus, Julie's old stomping grounds, on December 4th and 5th. And even encouraging her son, Ben, now at Castleton, and taking my class, Cannabis Culture and Consciousness, and enrolling in the program. And by the way, Julie is an excellent student.
Okay.
It's been the colors here recently, which was
Yes,
now anyway, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Julie Hulburd, stellar product with VPSU and a highly recommended communities.
Thank you. So first, I'll say that, forgive me, I've just taken some cold medicine and I have my tissues in my pocket. Yep. So there might be a moment where I have to deal with that, but it is always, an honor and a privilege to do something connected to the university because it feels like coming home. And I say that every time. It always feels like connecting back to where the me I am today began, right? But I was thinking on the way down here, when I started college, I had no plan. Oh, my slides. That's great.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think you want them yet.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Did you start with the compass one? I wasn't sure I had steps about them. Oh, perfect. Sorry, I should have connected with you before. I wasn't sure who was doing that.
Where's my sidekick isn't here now. Better go.
You notice the nice slideshow, yeah. There's like 4 slides, so it's not a big deal.
It's not. Oh, I'm seeing the screen share, that's the problem. Sorry about this.
Thank you.
That's still sure.
There we go. Wonderful. So, driving down Colchester this morning, I was thinking about, how when I started Johnson, I really didn't have a plan. And that was new for me in that moment because up until then, I had done all through high school, all through childhood, I had a plan. And I'm wondering how many of you, we get asked this question all the time, right? Who gets asked all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or the more modern or recent, if you've been interviewing, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Right? I'm going to look at my phone later to tell me where I'm going to be tomorrow. No idea what 5 years looks like, right? And it could be anything. The world changes and moves so fast right now that 5 years from now, the thing I thought I was going to do might not exist and something new might have been invented. So when I was a kid, every time someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a teacher. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see me. Oh, how cute is that? Yes. There's me. No, it's not like I didn't have toys in the 80s. I felt like it's better to pull out all of the cleaning products from my mother's cabinets, and these were my students. I remember cascading, particularly challenging, but otherwise they were all good. And whatever I learned in school that day, I taught to these very now well-educated cleaning products. But I always had that answer. Anytime someone asked me every year, at the start of the school year, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. But here's the thing, I never once thought about a thought. I never once thought about what it was that made me want to be a teacher. Certainly, I obviously have good teachers. It was something that was role model for me, but I never really thought about what it was that would inspire me to do that. So when I was in high school, so if you go to the next slide, please do not judge the hair and clothes. It was the 90s. I did a lot of going to concerts, and that's one of them. That was the concert 99.5 actually. So hanging out in the woods and stuff in the 90s. But and then this is me in the 90s, and in the spring of 1996, I was sitting in my photo lab at my high school, which was one of my favorite classes because I loved the teacher. She was really great about having really honest conversations with us, even though it had nothing to do with photography. And she said to me, so you're going to Johnson in the fall. What are you going to major in? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, very robotically, with confidence, I'll be a teacher, major in education. And she said, why? And I was like, I don't know. I have never thought about it. I have no answer to the why. I had no purpose for that particular career path. I had not thought about it. But thinking about it was what was expected of me. Having a plan was what was expected of me. So in that moment, I remember leaving the classroom and walking to my locker and having like a mini existential crisis in the halls of the high school, because I was like, wait, do I want to do this? Is that what I really want to do? Is that where I see myself in 5 years, where I see myself doing? And I really didn't know. So in the end, I decided to go to Johnson, but didn't major in education. I went as an undecided major. So I decided to be undecided, which seemed like the best point in my life to do that, because when I got to Johnson, I started exploring everything. I took classes in African culture. I took more photography classes because I liked that. I took writing classes. I took some business classes. And then, I started getting involved because I felt like I had so much freedom to choose the various paths available to me. I got involved in student government on campus and stayed in that the whole 4 years that I was there. That's how I met Dave Berg, actually, he was my advisor when I was president of student government. I got involved in the Center for Service Learning, so I got to go to Washington, D.C. and help with the last of our AIDS school display. Last time it was all displayed in one place, in the fall of '96. Later on, I went to New York City and helped prepare and deliver meals to people who were homebound living with AIDS. And while I didn't realize it at that time, everything I was learning, both in and out of the classroom, was teaching me something really, really important. I was learning to collaborate with others. I was learning to work with people I never would have met otherwise, right? And most importantly, I was learning to lead with a purpose and not just ambition. So by the second semester, we don't have to look at this anymore. We can go to the next one. By the next semester, by the fall of my, I guess probably towards the middle of my sophomore year, I had gotten an on-campus job that I had worked in the conferences and events office. And I loved the busyness of that. I loved running across campus and planning different events, getting to know everybody on the campus in different ways. And from there, I decided to major in hotel management because I liked the conferences part. I liked, learning to work within a budget, all of that stuff. And I ended up joining the HRM club, so the Hotel Restaurant Management Club. And there again, we got to go to Quebec and Boston and New York and all these other places to see how other businesses in the tourism industry ran. And from that was gaining all of this experience that I could not have imagined if I had just picked one path and started. So I graduated in that program and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do when I. But then after graduation, I really, once I got into working in that field, it wasn't that I didn't like it, I just seeing myself doing that forever, right? I didn't see myself working in hotels and restaurants forever. I wanted something else. But, really, it didn't matter that I majored in hospitality because everything I learned and all these different experiences, all these different classes I was taking, all of it was translatable to the next chapter of my life, which was in human resources. So really what I was learning was not just planning banquets, right? I learned that, right? But I also learned how to manage people, how to handle pressure, how to work within a budget, how to collaborate on multifaceted projects. There were people who came from all over the world at the time to do conferences on the Johnson campus, so I learned to work in these environments that through education, I had access to, and all of that was the backbone of my human resources career. Sometimes the major is not the destination, but it will provide you with a foundation. So after a number of years working in HR, I ended up working in municipal government HR, which I loved. Direct tie back to my time in student government. I loved policy and government work. After being in that career for a time, I realized that if I wanted to keep advancing, I was going to have to expand on my skills. So I went back to school. This time I went back to the Williston campus, and they had a like a prep course for what was then, what still is, an HR certification program. So I did it. I've never been a great test taker, so I knew I was going to need to know how to take the test. Even though I had learned all this stuff in my career in HR, I knew I was going to need someone to teach me how to take the test. So I did this prep course on the Williston campus in a weekend. That exam had a less than 50% pass rate at the time, and I passed it on the first try because I went to that class and learned how to take the test and use that avenue of education to shore up those skills, bolster what I knew, and polish what I needed to know to expand. And that really opened doors for me because it was something I could add to my resume. I was able to demonstrate that I had this body of knowledge that was necessary to advance. And I continued to grow in that career for some time. And it was through that career that I was appointed to the Ethics Commission. The first ever Ethics Commission in the state of Vermont was created in 2018. So something I could not have imagined years before that, right? It was created by the legislature then. And about a year after I was appointed, I became chair of that commission. That was an interesting and exciting time, but it was a new leadership role for me. And it was above any leadership role I ever had. So I realized pretty quickly that I needed to expand on those skills, on those leadership skills. So I went back to school. I went back to BCSC. And and enrolled in the online leadership program, the Master in Leadership program. And through that, I was able to both work and build these skills right alongside each other. And that was an incredible experience. Again, going back to school to hone and polish the skills that we're building out, right? And in that, particularly in the leadership program, a lot of it's about thinking about who you are as a leader. So developing those values of who I am and what I want out of life and who I want to be was something that I found all along through education, but definitely through that leadership program. And then in 2020, the state of Vermont, or the Vermont State Legislature passed Act 164, which created the cannabis marketplace and the cannabis control board, which is the role I'm in now, and a role I absolutely love. Now, I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't apply for this job. I thought there was no way I had the right skills for this job. I thought for sure that the governor would only appoint attorneys, and that's almost it. But it's because my two colleagues are attorneys, but I'm not yet. I thought for sure I didn't have the skills. I really thought there was no way, but my family really encouraged me. I really cared about what this marketplace could become. And so I sat down and I thought, okay, well, first I'm going to do the exercise of seeing what is it that I actually have in the class. And when I sat down to write my cover letter, my letter of intent, I started to realize, okay, I have this business background through HRM. I have this people management background. I've already helped start one state agency without knowing it. I have been building these skills all along for a job that didn't exist and has just become a thing, right? I think the applications were due at 11:59 on midnight in 2020, and I'm pretty sure I hit the send button at like 10:50. Like that's how close to the wire it was. And I made it through the process. We met with the legislature first, we met with the governor's cabinet, and the governor he appointed us all in 2021. Two colleagues, like I said, are attorneys. And you know, being in this role, I learned very quickly, and I would say this is true on the Ethics Commission too, but being the only non-attorney at the table is sometimes difficult because there's a legal language that not all of us knows, right? And it became very clear to me very quickly that I needed at least a conversational knowledge of what they were talking about. All those Latin words that just get thrown in, like Googling them in every conversation was not a sustainable way to live. I was gonna need to know what they were talking about. So I went to the Randolph campus, had an online paralegal studies program that was like a 12-week program, self-paced. And so I signed up for that. And that gave me, one, it gave me some insight of how attorneys learn and how they approach the world, which is incredibly helpful in conversations we were having about building policy. But then it also gave me that sort of like baseline conversational knowledge about, you know, how to speak in this sort of legal language and legal processes. But again, going back to school to fill in where the gaps that I saw myself having, it doesn't necessarily mean I lacked anything, right? I brought something to the table for the cannabis control board, but there was more I needed and more I wanted, so I went out and found it through education. So when I did that paralegal studies program, it reminded me of something that I had not thought about in a long time, not since I graduated from undergrad. And even when I was in student government, I really had thought about going to law school. But after graduation, I had kids not long after I graduated from undergrad, and you know, the modality for a young single mom to go to law school and have a full-time job did not exist in 2000. It didn't exist. Hasn't existed until very recently. So I had all the excuses for the longest time. But the more I continue in this role and see where it can go and the other things that might come up in the future related to it, the more I think, okay, maybe I need a little education. Maybe this is something I want to do. So on January 1st of this year, I'm sitting on my couch, as many of us do, January 1st, hanging out. I thought, okay, both my kids are going to be in college. My husband works at night. It's going to be me, the dog, and the cat. I think I can do this. So right then I signed up for an LSAT prep course. So the LSAT, if you're not familiar, is the course is the test you take, just like you take an SAT in college. The LSAT is the test you take before you go to to law school and I signed up for the course and it was a 10-week course. I moved through it. Now other than the online degree, the master's, like doing a test online, like the online master's didn't require any tests. I have never taken a test online in my life. Like that was not a thing. And when I was in undergrad, so part of learning that was learning the new modality, learning how to take a test online, learning how you do that, what you need to have for it. So that was part of that. But then the other was again how to take the test and what was expected of a law student. So this, like I said, it was a 10-week course. I took the LSAT in April. I applied right away to Vermont Law. In June got accepted, and in August started law school because this seems like the path that I want to be on now, and I love it. But I would not have been prepared for it 25 years ago. The way we learn today is so different. I really need to have a book that I can listen to. I'm doing so much better in law school than I did in undergrad because the modality and the educational access is there when it wasn't there 25 years ago. So it's never too late to go to law school or anything else, but also, sometimes things come around at the right time. You go back and get the education because it's available in a way that's new and different that maybe I don't think I would have been successful in law school all those years ago. But I love it today, along with my job. So I'm a cannabis regulator by day and a law student by night, which means I do a lot of reading. Actually, I listened to my most recent assignment at the bar on the way down here this morning. And what's interesting, if you go to the next slide, I don't think the me that's up there with the cleaning products teaching, or the me that was going to concerts in 1996 would ever have imagined the me that sits in committee rooms and talks to legislators. I never could have imagined that. And if I had chosen just one path and not seen all of the other opportunities and continue to go back and educate myself whenever I needed more skills, I don't know that I would be there. And it is a job I love, and this is an industry that I care about very much. And you can go to the next, we'll go back to comments now. So I want to reflect a little bit about all of the things I just said and what I learned along the way. Education is not something that stops at a certain point. It's a lifelong conversation between the you that you are and the you that you are becoming. And over time, I realized something else really powerful. At each step along the way, it wasn't just about what I was doing. It was working where I felt a sense of purpose and a place that aligned with my values. And most importantly, working somewhere that allowed me to grow and define who I was. That was really the most important. Most of my work, like I said, in HR, for example, was in municipal government, because I really value, and I've always valued, democratic systems and public service. That's part of who I am. My primary reason for seeking out the role of chair on the Ethics Commission was because I feel really strongly that public service is a public trust. It's part of who I am. And my primary reason for applying for the CCB was because I knew it was an opportunity to bring people who had been otherwise marginalized to the table in a way that they could help build and shape a brand new market. And that we could put public health at the forefront in a way that hasn't existed in other markets. It's part of who I am, right? It doesn't matter what I did. Those things are part of who I am. Those are my values. So every role, from HR to ethics to cannabis regulation, has taught me that you can have both purpose and practicality. You can have both in the roles that you choose. In HR, I learned about negotiation. I learned about policy. I learned about applying policy. Directly relates to what I do today. Ethics, transparency. All our meetings with the public, right? I learned about collaboration in ethics too, collaborating with the legislature, all of those things directly translates to what I do today. And in cannabis regulation, I'm learning a lot about navigating legally complex systems in a very challenging environment. And doing so with empathy and with pragmatism, because that's what's necessary. And at each phase, I went back and sharpened my skills with education. mostly at BTSU, because I feel like when I feel like going home, I go, right, to my educational base. I do want to say one other thing about extracurriculars. Like I talked about like going back for education and stuff like that, but the things that you have access to through your education are just as important. So being on the SGA, that had early exposure to the legislature there. When I was on the SGA in college, we used to go and meet with the governor once a year. That was an incredible experience. That governor ran for president. How cool is that? And I got to see that guy was first famous. Those activities and those things, all the traveling I got to do, seeing the rest of the world, all of that was just as important. The classroom adjacent stuff is just as important as the in-classroom stuff that I did. And that continues on. I'm currently part of my local Rotary. I connect with people in my community in a way that I would not otherwise be able to connect with them through the Rotary. And do community service with the Rotary in a way that I might not otherwise connect with my community. But it's also a networking opportunity, right? There are other folks who have gone to law school in my Rotary, so I can lean on them for advice and expertise, right? There's all those things that being part of both your educational community and your broader community that really help you define who you are. So each of these experiences, along the way, both in and out of the classroom, it's not just about what I did, as I said, it's about who I became in the process. And that's really the point I want to make today, is that when you focus on who you want to be, whether it's a lifelong learner, or a passionate leader, or a convener of people, or an expert project designer, no matter what that is, when you figure out who it is you want to be, then the what has endless possibilities, especially in today's world. The new industries come up every day, they change and move every day. My job literally did not exist 6 years ago. I could never have imagined when I was that little kid sitting on my kitchen floor that I would regulate cannabis. That was not a thing. That's not a thing I could have imagined. Not a thing my mother could have imagined. It was one of the hardest time I think, actually. It's not untrue for most favorites, right? But as being able to predict the future, right? Building those skills and defining who you are, that's the key. Because then you bring all of that to the table, what you choose to do. Your dream career might not exist yet. Your dream industry might not exist yet. But the person that you're becoming, ready for it. You're focusing on who you want to be. Now, I have a takeaway. I'll be right back. So, I have these cards, and we can pass them out. They're blank on purpose, right? They're blank because they can say whatever you want. And I have pencils. And I have pencils on purpose because no matter what you write down about your journey and who you want to be, you can always change it. You can erase it and rewrite it however many times you want. My hand needs to you and make sure I pass them out. So when you get home tonight, I'm going to say, I'm afraid of what I assume that there's going to be test departments everywhere, there are. But, sit down for a second, quiet spot, and think about, who do you want to be? Think beyond the love, think beyond the picture, think beyond the job. What are the things that you want to bring in the world? What do you want to bring to the world as a community? And we start with that. So you can take a card and write those things down and then read that. And later on, 6 months, a year, 6 years from now, you look at it and you want it to change it. There is no set path. The world is yours and you can do whatever you want with it. And I'll finish with this, and we can ask questions. So the next time that someone asks you what you want to be when you grow up, or where you see yourself in 5 years, it's not a bad question. You're going to get asked it probably more times in the next few years. Just pause for a moment and remember that you do not have to have everything mapped out. You do not have to have every step planned. Instead, take a second and ask yourself who you want to be. When you find out who that is, the what will find you. So any questions that you have? I don't remember when this total timeline is. I did not. Plenty of time. Cool. I knew I was going to go through it fast because I thought people would have questions about cannabis because they took. But I'm happy to answer anything about, my journey, what we've done or because that's particularly unique, although it wasn't necessarily the goal for today. But really that is new and changing every day. And there are folks in this industry who are finding themselves in places they also never imagined and going back to school for different things. There's a lot of folks in the cannabis industry who got master's degrees in something else entirely. And now they find themselves in a business and they need to change and have a new set of skills. So it's really been very fascinating. I didn't bring samples. So
That was my question.
what was your question? Yeah, I didn't bring samples.
I have a comment and a question.
Yeah.
My comment is, first of all, I'm impressed that every time you felt a gap in your knowledge and skills, you went back, took a program and moved forward. It reminded me of a comment that was very good, the Dalai Lama, who said, live each day is always your last. Educate yourselves every day as if you'll live forever. And you mentioned that, education never stops, you can keep on educating yourself. But my question is that it does have to do with the control board. We all know that the current administration in Washington has a very thin view of DEI programs and social equity programs, and I wonder, and I know that's one of your main roles with CCP and working with us. Has there been much discussion at the CCB about that issue, whether you need to change your mission in supporting social equity, DEI applicants for licensees? We're seeing across the country where law firms, universities, schools, businesses are all trimming their DEI programs. Something about to think about because Vermont's not the only state that has social equity programs for Black and brown people and others deemed social equity eligible. Is that an issue that you're thinking about contending with, or has there been any pressure from any other?
No, actually, so one of the reports that we're working on now, actually you asked us in the last session to produce for the upcoming session, it's about, how should funding for the Cannabis Business Development Fund, or should there be a permanent funding source for the Cannabis Business Development Fund? And that funding is designed through statute to provide technical assistance and grants to folks who are qualified as social equity. So there doesn't seem to be any conversation about stopping or slowing that down. And I can't say that we've had any conversation at the board that we would stop or slow that down. It was really, it's very clear in the enabling statute that that was part of why we were created. In fact, one of the, very rarely do you find statute that is this clear, but it says the goal of the board, it's the intent of the legislature to move as much of the illicit market into the regular. So one of the qualifiers for social equity is somebody who has been incarcerated for cannabis-related offense or is a family member. We couldn't do that. We couldn't meet that legislative intent if we didn't have these equity programs. So yeah, I don't see it stopping or slowing down. I would say there's two things about that. One is Vermont's a very small state. And I think that we have had an opportunity because we're a small state to do a lot of things that other states would never have considered. We can, our board, we're able to go out into the industry and we take a lot of time to do public comment and roundtables. I can't speak for every state, but for other states that are much larger, they would never be able to accomplish that in the way that we can because we're a small state. So we're lucky in that. Yeah, and then I don't see it, it's slowing down at all, I don't see that changing.
I asked because, I know that at BTSU, which has like many universities, the programs
Yeah.
are sort of examining it. Not that they want to examine it to change it. They are getting threats from the federal government.
Yeah.
The tuition assistance for federally insured loans for students. Federal loans for research. And, the thing is, they might be coming after you, pulling back their money unless you're.
Right. What I find really interesting about this conversation is that years and years ago, and I wish I could cite it off the top of my head, but years and years ago, I read a study about diverse workforces and how when the workforce is diverse and brings a lot of different backgrounds, and not only that you'll see for the people who are in it, that it's actually a more productive work. There's a Kinsey study that talks about organizations that have people of color in sort of their top ranks sometimes outperform other industries. So I don't understand why would we not want to have this diverse workforce and ensure that we are, we want to be reasonable and fair, right? We want everyone to have access to education, but we also want our businesses to be productive. So I think the avenue that was intended was equity, and I don't know why we would backtrack from that now if we want to have success. Yeah.
I don't think most organizations want to backtrack.
No, yeah.
Seeing what's happening at the, top level.
The other piece is that cannabis is still federally illegal, right? And so, the federal, I don't know how the federal government would, I don't know how they would handle it to say, we don't want you to do this program. This is not federally legal anyway. So, I mean, there are some things that happen typically annually in the budget, and we still sort of lean on this whole memorandum that sort of allows states to develop their programs for certain conditions. But I don't know that cannabis is something that the federal government is focusing on in that way right now. I don't know about.
Until they legalize.
Until yes. Right, yes, there are some states actually that have referendums, or there are petitions for referendums to rescind their cannabis markets, which is crazy, right? Well, I know that there are folks who have public health concerns, and I think that there's a way to navigate that. But at the same time, you're also talking about businesses that now have employees. Seems like not the time to close a business. It just doesn't seem like that. I think that lunch is at 12:05.
We did go a little bit of. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Easy to find.
We do have a gift for you. We do. Right here. And you did. It's a long thing that's planned. But here you go.
Oh,
Right here.
I love it. That's cool. Well, I will put this in my office, and the next time we Zoom, we will see everyone. Very fun.
And there's a little box here.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. I love it. Oh,